Yeah, that would be.
Okay, let's call this meeting of the Moore County Board of Education to order. First matter is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, there's a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Did you notice
Okay.
he said that?
Why don't we have Dr. Locklear lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Let us have, at this point, one moment of reflection, prayer, and inspiration. Silence. Okay. First matter of business is the election of a vice chair. Do I have any nominations for vice chair?
Yes, sir. I nominate Shannon Davis.
Okay. Shannon Davis is nominated. There is no need for a second under Robert's Rules of Order. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Hearing no other nominations, I declare the nominations are closed. Is there a motion to elect by acclamation? Pardon?
There you go.
Is there a motion to elect Shannon Davis by acclamation?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of electing Shannon Davis by acclamation, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All those in favor of Shannon Davis, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Shannon, please join us as our new vice chair. Congratulations. Okay. Now, we very much appreciate Shannon being here and look forward to having you as our new vice chair, Shannon.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so at this point, I wanted to reserve in the agenda a few of my remarks because this is a brand-new school year. And with that new school year at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to ring the school bell just outside this meeting room, signaling the return of our teachers for the fall semester. Don't everybody get too excited who's listening to this. The students don't return until August the 28th. Okay. But now it's time to look at what is before us and to refocus on the goals we set for ourselves. And by the goals that we've set for ourselves, I'm talking about our strategic plan for 2024. Many of us have been on this board for, it'll be 3 years this December. It's time to claim victory for what's gone right, take responsibility for anything that's gone wrong, and plan for the future. Clearly, we need to be proud of our reading initiatives. Our letters training literacy has been thorough and by all indications successful. We're going to find ways this year, I hope, to build on this success. Clearly, the program of volunteer tutoring, which is spearheaded by Pauline Bruno, has helped our students tremendously. This year, we have to recruit more people, more volunteers, and take advantage of the willingness, especially of our senior community, to devote their time to our student scholars. This year, each of our students between the 2nd and 10th grades will have to read at least one book every 9 weeks. Many will read more. But here's the key. Those who struggle, those who maybe never went to our media center except to take care of their Chromebooks, well, they're going to be challenged to do better and to read sharper and have their literacy skills and critical thinking sharpened. Through our reading program, each student this year will be the recipient of our help and our high expectations. What's often been called the self-fulfilling prophecy of low expectations will not be tolerated in the school system. At least, and I hope we'll all back that. This year, we need to concentrate on math and science as sharply as we've approached reading literacy. One of these, once these efforts are in place, especially for our disadvantaged students, that will help us in especially setting goals for ourselves and for our students. And what are their goals? What are the goals that we have to look at in particular? Over here up front, we have our strategic plan. And our strategic plan is what we have to look to. It's what we're going to be judged by. It's what it's what we set for ourselves to be judged by. Okay? So we have to concentrate on it. The first thing is every student can learn and succeed. Okay? Remember, we are sent elsewhere. And I said this before, when your child, or when a child comes to a private school or a charter school, and they say to that child, they bring the parent in the office, because it happens time and time again, and they say to that child, by the way, you're not doing so well in our school, okay? We think you might do well in some other school, okay? They say, why don't you look to another school? Why don't you look elsewhere? Well, we are St. Elsewhere. We are that elsewhere, okay? And we're proud of that because we will educate every child to be successful, okay? That is because of our second plank. Education, employment, and enlistment are equally honorable pursuits for the future lives of our students. Our schools provide a safe and respectful and orderly and caring environment. Teachers and administrators and bus drivers and everyone need to know that we'll have their backs, that for their justifiable actions, this board will have their backs. But we're not going to allow, by the way, disruptive students to disrupt classes. But on the other hand, neither will we give up on the disruptors. Every child can learn, and what that means is that although we might be accused of some naivete, with a little tough love, even a disruptive student can become a success. We engage our parents and community in the education of our students. Moore County has a Parents' Bill of Rights. I don't know what they're doing in the legislature, but we have a Parents' Bill of Rights. This includes a curriculum which is front-facing, and that curriculum is on the internet. So when we talk to parents, we tell them they're concerned about what their kids are learning. It's on the internet. All you do is go search for curriculum, and it'll show the curriculum for every course, everything that we teach. It's right there for the parents to look at. In other words, there'll also be no secrets kept from parents and from families of faith to families who seek inspiration by other means. True inclusion doesn't demand woke conformity, but it is a matter which requires simple tolerance, and as Aretha Franklin says, and has told us, RESPECT, respect. Respect is what we expect. So you can write that down. No one would believe it. The readers wouldn't believe it. Okay. But it is true. Respect is what we expect. Okay. Our educators are empowered to meet the needs of all students. Once again, we have their backs, and we're all going to make our students successful. But here's the crux of it. Can I go down a little bit on this slide? A little bit. Okay. We have set data goals. And those data goals are what is important. So what we set is goals which we will either make or we won't, and everybody will know it. So we're challenged. We've challenged ourselves. First, we want to increase the number of schools meeting or exceeding growth from 14 to 23. We want to increase the composite grade level proficiency by 10 percentage points from 56.6% to 66.6%. We want to increase the context ranking for composite grade level. Currently, well, as of the time of our strategic plan, we were 23 out of 115 school districts, or the top 20%. We're setting our goals as the top 5% in the state. We want to increase the number of 10th graders reading at or above grade level as measured by the end of course Lexile reading level by 10 percentage points from 81% to 91%. And for me, the next is probably the most important, in part because I was the person who insisted on it, for better or for worse, but I believe we have to recognize it. We need to close the achievement gap in the grade level performance of formerly marginalized groups when compared to the general population. For black students, we expect to reduce that gap from 29.9% to 19.9%. For Hispanics, from 10% to 0%. Disadvantaged students from 21.1 to 11.1. Students with disabilities, the education gap was 38.4%. We expect to reduce that to 28.4% for the 21, that's over the 21-22 school year. Meanwhile, while increasing overall student performance. So we just don't want to just do the gap, decrease the gap by keeping the overall performance stagnant. We've got to increase that performance, and we've got to lower the gap. That's a double whammy, but we've set ourselves up for it. While the gap is unacceptable, any gap is unacceptable, this is our pledge initially, and we'll continue to work on that gap to make sure that gap is absolute zero, and that needs to be in our future goals. We need to increase the number of students who complete career and technical education, and by the way, that's vocational education. These are students who are trained to do a job, able to raise a family, maybe buy a home without the burden of a student loan. We want to increase that hopefully by 15% over 21-22. We want to decrease the number of schools with a grade performance of F to 0, from 2 to 0. And that is extremely important. These are ambitious goals, but they're necessary goals. And can we do it?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. We own it. We own these goals. And as a board, we'll be judged by these goals. And just as important this year, we have to find a way to tell our story better. Our Connect Academy is virtually unknown to the community at large. Okay? Yet we virtually educate local and especially military students as far away as the Middle East. Through Blend Ed, we serve 10%. We serve the 10% of our students who are homeschooled. That's pretty important, right, Shannon? Yes. So don't think of our schools as just places where you send students. We send the schools to the home, where the home can send the students for 1-2 classes. And as a bonus, the children can both lean on our educational expertise because we have the best teachers in North Carolina. Everybody knows that. There are Moore County teachers. And they can also work with us with team sports because everybody knows we have award-winning sports teams. That's important. And it's an important thing for homeschoolers as well as our schoolers. So we welcome our homeschoolers through Blend Ed, okay? But the public knows little of Blend Ed. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, I was going through my phone yesterday, and I decided to tweet out something. It's called Xing it now, okay? And I found out Moore County Schools has an X account, okay? And we tweet or X, in honor of Elon Musk. We do that frequently. Our last tweet was on driver's education. Yet, we need a lot more followers for our Twitter accounts. We need a lot more followers for our Instagram account. I think a lot of people know we have a Facebook account, but it's quite important. It's quite important that we let the public know about that. Lastly, unfortunately, our news media seems sometimes more interested in drama than education. How do we fight that, what I call the prurient interest? We have to be both visible and myopic in our devotion to education. If we meet our strategic goals, the media will take note. So our future looks bright. This year will be crucial. Maybe we'll begin to build a new high school, modernize our elementary schools and our middle schools, perhaps get our overcrowded students out of trailers, especially in one particular middle school, and give them state-of-the-art classrooms. Our plate is full, but we're up to the challenge. We can do it, and this is going to be the best year ever. So we're ready. We're raring to go. Or what do you say, Dr. Locklear?
Fired up.
Fired up.
Fired up, ready to go. Okay. I needed
Go
that.
with that.
I didn't want to steal his line. Okay. Because I can't do it like he can. Okay.
It's the old coaching. We're
It's
fired
all
up, ready to go.
cold coach. I go to coach for advice all the time. Yeah. At any rate, so that being said, unless anyone has some additional comments or anything. Okay, because I don't know. It was mentioned that Mr. Hensley is not here, but we do expect him to be here, I would hope, on next Monday. But, so that's important. We're all devoted to the learning of our students, and that's important to know.
Could I
each
say
and every
something?
one of it. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to add about our reading initiative in our third grade across the county. We have new workbooks, and I love these workbooks. I'm so proud of them. I hope we put them in every grade. It's consistency. These are the workbooks that you and I learned with. It puts all its emphasis on phonics, on making new words, on vocabulary, on sequence, on the characters. It's really, and the books belong to the children. So they can take them home, they can write in them. I am so proud, and I think we're going to see a very big difference with these.
Very good.
And I hope we put them in every other grade.
Yeah, well, the powers that be are listening.
We're always looking for great resources for our kids
Yeah,
and our teachers.
I'm really impressed with these.
Okay. And you can ignore me, you can't ignore our matriarch. That's gonna, that's gonna stick. That's gonna stick for a long time. That's cool. Okay, how about best practices? Dr. Metcalf, I guess, and Dr. Locklear?
Yes, sir, Chair Levy. I just want to say thank you quickly for your comments, your optimism and
Yes.
enthusiasm for the new year. As I say, and maybe I overuse it, but that's, like I said, the old coach in me, we are fired up for the new year. Can't wait to get our kids back and our teachers back. So we're looking forward to it, and I believe it is going to be the best year we've had yet, building on successes for last year and even going deeper. So thank you, sir. And speaking of that, as Mr. Benway, I think in June, Mr. Benway and I had a conversation as he, and I know Ms. Bruno and other Mr. Levy as well, visited a lot of classrooms, every school. And Mr. Benway noted, how do we share the best practices that we see in one school or one classroom? How do our principals, how do our teachers, how are they able to share those best practices across our district? Our district of 22 brick and mortar schools and Connect Academy. How do we share those all the way across? So Dr. Metcalf is just going to give us a little information. You probably heard some of this at our summer leadership retreat last week, how we do that work. But Dr. Metcalf is going to share a little bit of that information this morning. So, Mike?
Thank you, Dr. Locklear, and thank you, Mr. Levy. Appreciate those comments, and they lead very well into this presentation, and appreciate the charge, if you will, and the work that we are very proud of that we've done and the work that we still need to do. So thank you very much for that, and congratulations, Ms. Davis, as well. I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about the structures that we have in place to build best practices and support our leaders. You saw a little bit about that at our leadership retreat this last weekend, or last week. Not last weekend, that's last week. Our goal is obviously to deepen the implementation of what we call the Moore County Way. The Moore County Way really is built off of a triangle. On one side of that triangle is relationships. On the other side of that triangle is our processes and procedures. And together, with great processes, procedures, great practices, and relationships, we'll get the outcomes that Mr. Levy has set forth with us with that charge. Together, we will get those outcomes. It's the Moore County Schools Way. Really, we've been working on that, on the processes, the procedures, the relationships. I guess it's been 7 or 8 years, and it's kind of been a bottom-up process. Our teachers have been involved in that. We've put together frameworks and expectations and non-negotiables from our PLTs to our instructional frameworks and the way that we do business, what is expected of us here in Moore County. Bottom-up approach over a number of years to where we are today. And our goal, again, is to make sure that implementation is deepened, that we utilize the expertise in our leaders that we have to keep training and sharing those best practices across the board. So we have structures in place that allow us to do that. We have a number of supports for our leaders. We have a new principal onboarding we're going to talk about in a minute. We have the August Leadership Retreat, which you participated in last week, and appreciate that very much. Every month, we meet with our principals and have leadership meetings. Those are more operational. We'll talk about that a little bit. We have the monthly principal learning and leading meetings which are Donna Gephardt and her team really take a leadership role in there. It's instructional, and we share those practices and best ways to move ourselves forward. We want that information to go down to our assistant principals, so we have assistant principal learning and leading meetings as well. We do walkthroughs at schools. We do feedback processes at schools. Our principals walk through their peer schools where they can share ideas and see what's going on at Aberdeen or Southern Pines and bring it back to Pinehurst or to Sand Hills Farm Life. And then our teams do on-school, on-site support as well. So we're going to go through some of those and kind of share some of the work that we do in these structures that we have to support our leaders.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the new principal onboarding. This is for any new principal, whether it's someone new to Moore County Schools, or if it's someone who is an assistant principal in Moore County and has moved up to a principal position. We provide this in July, and as a whole group, and we make sure that we give them an opportunity to meet all of the department contacts. So when we did this summer, Jenny Purvis came and talked about operations and what the processes and procedures are for operations. We had all of our academic and student support services team members there so that they could talk specifically about their area and processes and procedures. We give an overview of the supports that we provide. So what is it that each one of the departments do? What is it that Mike and I do to help support principals? Who do you reach out to if you have a question about a 504, or if you have a question about maintenance, a maintenance need in your building? So it gives them the opportunity to know who to contact for what area. We give them an opportunity to ask questions. So there's a question and answer time for each one of the departments. So as we go through information, what questions do they have? We also try to limit how much we're actually giving them because it can be very overwhelming as a new principal coming in. So what we ask departments to do is give us your top 5. What are the top 5 things that new principals need to know before they start the school year? And then we'll go ahead and gradually release the rest of the information. Or if they have questions about something, we'll go ahead and answer those questions. We give them a yearly checklist. So I love checklists. I love flowcharts. So this is a checklist month by month that just says, okay, it's the month of October. What are the things that we really need to think about or not forget for this month? And sometimes it's as simple as, don't forget to do your fire drill this month. Make sure that you put that on the schedule. Have you checked all of your IEPs to make sure that we don't have any that are overdue? Are we in line with all of the maintenance requests that we have? Have we done all of those things? So it's just a little reminder because we know principals are super busy in their buildings. They are going with kids, with teachers all day long. So we want to make sure that we provide that resource. It also gives them an opportunity to network with each other. When we held our new principal onboarding this July, we invited our principals who started mid-year last year, and we also invited our principals that were brand new principals for this year. So it gave them an opportunity to network with each other and also network with the support staff so that they could ask those questions one-on-one if they needed to. So it gave them an opportunity to meet some other folks. We have our new principal to Moore County, she's been a principal before, but Miss Kelly, and it gave her the opportunity to meet the other folks that are in the district because she doesn't know the other people in the district. So it gave her an opportunity to do that and network with those folks, as well as networking with their mentors.
Yeah, I should mention, we do a strong mentoring program with our new principals. There's a connection there. Jamie and I also meet with all of our new principals once a month. We have breakfast together once a month. That's sometimes very light, sometimes just an opportunity to have conversations so that they can bring their issues to us up and see us face to face and a check-in with them. And also they get to share that they're all going through some of the same challenges together. And that's a healthy thing for new principals to hear from other new principals or early career principals. You participated in our leadership kickoff last week, our leadership retreat that we do every year in August. It's generally 3 days. Parts of it are very light and upbeat and fun and exciting and kick us off and get us all fired up as we move into the years. Other parts of it are really about leadership training, just becoming better leaders. And then some of it's operational and updates on information that has changed or directions in which the district wants to go. This year, we did crucial conversations training, which the feedback from the principals has been very positive. We also did some safety and security updates. We did some training, de-escalation trainings, first aid, a lot of strategic planning. just kind of setting the goals for the year. Previous years have had different themes. Last year, the theme was reestablish, refresh, and connect, and it was kind of bringing back, making sure that we were doing, and ensuring that we were coming out of COVID, doing the things that we know that we need to do that are best practices, and reconnecting with some of the training we had done over the number of years. Prior to that, it'd been very operational driven, and so we've had different themes each year as we move through, but it was a good kickoff to the year.
We also have principal monthly leadership meetings. Every month, our principals get together. We meet right here in this room. And one of the things that we do during that time is professional learning teams. So we expect professional learning teams happening at the school. We also expect it when we have our principals come together. This is during our grade level span breakouts. So we break up our secondary and our elementary and talk about specific areas of need for those specific grade levels. Elementary is very different than secondary in a lot of ways, so they have different needs, different concerns. So we take time to kind of talk through those. Sometimes it's information that our departments feel like they need to share with them, but it's also an opportunity for them to bring up some concerns or bring up some information that they may need some more assistance with. For example, when we talked about daycare and after-school care, there were some things that came out of that. So just having that opportunity with folks that are doing the same thing that you are, to have those conversations. There's also a lot of nuts and bolts. So what is it that you need to know? What is it that you need to know for this month? What's coming up? And you'll see some bulleted items there. We want to make sure that we include everybody in those discussions during that principal leadership so that they've got those pieces that they need. And then just some informational items. So there's a portion of it where we just put those informational items, we hit them really quick, so that they just have those. Maybe it's some reminders, maybe it's something that's coming up so that they're aware of that. And then we also include, some PD if we need to.
Yes, so 2 meetings a month with our principals, which actually is quite a lot. We do try to give them an opportunity to go out at lunchtime on their own, gives them time to connect, both socially but professionally too. The one meeting is operational, as Jamie talks about. The second is more of a learning and leading meeting, focusing on professional development, number of different topics over the years. We focused on a lot of data dives, best practices, expectations, our Moore County Schools Way. Generally, the curriculum instruction department, Donna Gephardt, her team, focus in that particular area on those days. The key is we try to differentiate, and so our principals are in different places. Our schools are in different places. Some are doing some things really well and need to work in other areas. Some, vice versa. And so we try to differentiate that level of instruction. So if our focus is on, for example, PLTs, professional learning teams, that goes back several years, but it comes to mind. We had schools that were doing that really well. Pinehurst Elementary School is an example of a school that has done that very well. So we'll use Ms. Saccone and demonstrate their practices. Often we'll go to their schools and see it in action and bring those schools or those principals that maybe need a little bit more development in that particular area to go there. Vice versa, Mr. Martin really uses iReady data in some creative ways. Principal at Cranes Creek Middle School, formerly at Elise. He uses the iReady data in really creative ways that some of our other schools haven't kind of caught on board yet. So we've used him to support the other principals as a part of that training. Just a couple of examples of how we try to differentiate based on what we see, what we know is going on in our schools, and what the data is telling us, so that we can focus that professional development and improve everybody, the whole system, if you will.
So this next part is probably what I'm most excited about, is growing our own leaders, making sure that we have professional development for our leaders who want to go that next step. So if we have teachers who want to be administrators, they want to be assistant principals or principals, we want to make sure that we are putting processes in place, putting professional development in place so that they can build those skills that they need to be in those positions. Our School Leadership Academy is designed for our current assistant principals who would like to be a principal in Moore County Schools. So what is it that it takes in order for you to be a principal in Moore County Schools? So what we have is monthly academies, monthly PD sessions, and it spans from going to a conference. So we're going to go to the school law symposium this year, so that they can learn more about school law. And then also book studies. We also have some activities where they have to learn more about their leadership style. What are the positive things about their leadership style? What are some things that maybe they need to work on with their leadership styles? And really get to know and understand themselves as a leader so that we can make sure that they're ready to move on when it's that time. We want to make sure that we're growing our own folks. So if we have folks that are here in Moore County that want to be assistant principals, that want to be principals, we want to do everything we can to foster that and make sure that they get to that point, because we want to grow our own folks. So we've got the School Leadership Academy that's for our assistant principals, and then we also have our aspiring administrators cohort, and that's for teachers who have their administrative license that would like to become an assistant principal. So we do a lot of the same things with that group, just building that awareness of what it takes to be an assistant principal. What does that really mean? Because sometimes we get in those positions and it's not really what we thought it was going to be. So making sure that they have an understanding of what that really entails and what the expectations are for those positions.
One of the things, we get feedback from our principals all the time. For every one of our meetings, we have a process in which they provide us feedback. Every meeting that we do, we get feedback from our principals, assistant principals, whoever the group we may be working with is, to try to make sure that what we're providing is on target and continues to improve itself. You know, it's a constant improvement. One of the things we got from our principals over the last several years was that we were forgetting our assistant principals. It's hard to pull people out of the building.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as hard to pull people out of the building. They have busy jobs, and so every time you pull them out, somebody else has got to fill that role at the school, right? And so pulling APs was something that, you know, over the years has just been a challenge for us. But the principal feedback was that we were forgetting that group. You know, we were asking the principals to bring the information back to them, and they would, but it just wasn't as strong as it might be if we pulled them in. So we've been pulling our APs in. We pull them in for a half day, a morning session and an afternoon session 6 times throughout the course of the year. We build off of much of the work that we're doing with our principals, but also trying to differentiate that if there's particular APs that maybe need focus in some different areas based on what we hear from our principals. So assistant principal learning and leading meetings are occurring as well.
Okay, we also have district-supported professional development throughout the year. You'll see a picture here with Ashley Saccone and her team. They were asked to speak at the AIM conference to talk about what they do with letters and how they were kind of leading in the state when it comes to letters PD for elementary. Our elementary principals all participate in letters PD. We have our More Learning Conference, More Engaged, Solution Tree, and then state conferences. Our principals and teachers have been spotlighted at conferences and state board meetings because of the work that they've done within our district. And our More Engaged is actually, you know, we have letters for our elementary schools. More Engaged is that technology base for our 6-12 folks.
So the work continues. Again, want to thank you for attending and participating and being part of the energy of the kickoff learning leadership retreat last week, and our work continues. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. Whenever I was there, we did the crucial conversation training where, you know, you had to say positive Pauline or something like that. I had to bow out because I couldn't remember all the names, but it was so interesting and positive to see that. Also, I had to leave, but I came back for the first aid and trauma training, and that was very, very impressive. And it was good to see UNC come down to get that training. And,
yeah, we had, thank you for mentioning that, and I saw you there. I appreciate you coming back for that particular piece of it, Mr. Holmes. I think UNC Chapel Hill sent 6 trainers down to work with our staff on the Stop to Bleed training and some first aid training. They had 6 trainers, and in addition to that, Mr. Brooks, Scott Brooks, sent some of his folks over. So we had 8 or 9 or 10 trainers there able to work at every single table with all of our assistant principals and principals. We'll talk about that a little later today in another presentation we're doing, but I thought it was very valuable, so thank you for noting that.
Yes, yeah, I have a couple of questions. With respect to capturing lessons learned, do we have a protocol for recording these and making them retrievable to the MSC in general? It seems to me this is an opportunity to build an institutional and tribal knowledge base that ought to be retrievable.
Process, we're taping the trainings or,
No,
or
I think putting,
a
putting,
portal where we keep the information that we're,
yeah, a standardized format where you describe that very special best practice, on down, save it and make it retrievable in an archive.
Sure.
Especially for newly hired teachers and whatnot, but want to review that thing and see what they might glean from that. So
well, I think we have a lot of resources that we've collected around our, what we would have called our non-negotiables, which is now our Moore County Schools way of doing business. So we have resources and online supports for PLTs, for example, our professional learning teams, for our instructional frameworks, our K-5 math framework, our literacy framework, what we're expecting in the classroom. We have resources for quality lesson planning. These are the things that we know work. These are what the best practices are, and when you do the research, they're all come down to 5 or 6 things that we've put in place, again, bottom up. And we have resources through our curriculum instruction where you can find that. What are our resources to learn about the K-5 literacy framework and that instructional?
I guess
So maybe that's toward what you mean.
I guess my emphasis comes at a more a narrower perspective. Having spent a lot of time in the classes, I saw some fantastic things happen over at Pinehurst Elementary, High Falls, where else here? McDeeds Creek, et cetera, et cetera. Those particular instances demonstrate the opportunity, I think, to be shareable and to modify them, adapt them, have them adaptable by teachers across the board, if they so choose. But it's also an opportunity to give some good ideas to newly hired teachers. So I guess what I'm saying is capture that particular tactic, technique, and procedure, if you will.
Specific instructional lesson
Yeah,
that they're
some-
doing,
yeah.
specific instructional procedure
There's
they're
some
doing.
great things, some great innovations that have taken place that ought to be shared, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think
And
we
those
do,
things ought to be captured in an archive that just says best classroom practices, boom.
and we
in
have
my
some,
view.
we have some of that. I think we can always get better on that. We have a team that works throughout the summer, or summer curriculum workshops. They're developing that. They're boosting up those instructional, as you've seen, the website where we keep the lessons, where we keep instructional tools. We keep some of those best practices that you're speaking of. I think you can always expand that. There's always great things going on that maybe are missed and need to be shared in other places. But I think there is a process to do that, but we can work toward expanding it. It's good ideas.
Okay.
Thank you.
The second question, with respect to leader training, do you use a matrix of leader characteristics and traits? Is that what you're teaching, or how are you approaching that thing?
It's, we do look at the school executive evaluation, the rubric. So the rubric that they're evaluated on, we kind of break that apart. It talks about 21 different leadership characteristics. And so we break those down. We break down each one of the standards within that. So we can look at specifically when it comes to HR, when it comes to finance. We look at specific areas that we make sure that they need to know as they move into that leadership position.
Presumably, this will become part of a teacher evaluation at some point.
Principal value.
Principal evaluation.
Why not teacher evaluations? You're beginning to build leaders down here at the rookie teacher level. Maybe we ought to take a look at that part of it, too.
But I think we do. I think our principals are working directly with the teachers. We were focusing here on our principals and assistant principals with this presentation, but there is a matrix, there is an evaluation matrix that has all of those pieces at the teacher level, at the assistant teacher level, principal level, administrator level, all of our levels. And when we do any of those trainings, whether it be the Growing Our Own, whether it be the assistant principal meetings that we have, we're looking at those evaluation tools and that matrix, as you call it, exactly correct. and identifying where that drives some of that instruction and where we need to improve.
Sure, and I think it's just a valuable function, is to be able to capture that as part of the evaluation of a job well done.
Yes.
Or of a job done mediocre.
Yes.
So that you can accumulate these things over time, use them as a mentoring
Yep.
yardstick,
Yep.
and ultimately to choose for particular assignments.
Absolutely. You know, that's very individually programmed. So, you know, we meet with our principals meet with a teacher, they go over that matrix, they go over that evaluative tool, the teacher or the principal makes their goals. You know, I need work in the finance, the management and the finance piece, that's standard. And so I'm gonna give a little attention to that throughout the course of the year. We provide support as they're trying to work through the areas, that professional development plan that they've developed for themselves. And so it's very individualistic. I may have an area that I need to improve on. I may want to be, you know, more aware of the finance piece and need to delve into that this particular year and get some outside training on that, some inside training, work with Miss Edmonds on that. That may be my focus. Somebody else's focus may be more on the human resources end of it. You know, they may be a standard there that they want to work on, and they've created their own PDP, their own plan to deal with that. And our responsibility is to meet with them at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year to give them feedback on how they're progressing on the areas that they've focused on, and also to provide them support in that process of development. So I think there's a wider view, and then there's a narrow view of the individual, and that's where the evaluation tool, the standards come in, and the support, and their self-analysis, you know, the individual employee self-analysis. This is what I've got to focus on. You know, this is what I've got to focus on to be a better leader at my particular site.
I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but just one question. When an employee is assigned a task or a position, is there a mentor assigned along with that person, well, with that assignment?
Like a new teacher, I think is what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
Oh, like a new teacher? A
Oh,
new teacher, we do have a mentor. We have a
wherever.
mentoring program for teachers. We have a mentoring program for principals. Our assistant principals connect with each other. A lot of them are alone on their particular site, obviously, but we have for principals, for example, we bring them in once a month, have breakfast with them. They have a mentor that they're signed on the front end of that, so that
Okay.
they connect with regularly, so that they learn the Moore County way. You know, just how do you hire an employee? What's the process for that? If I've got to hire a teacher, what's the process for that? They've got a connection to do that. They meet regularly for that. So yes, there's a mentoring at the principal level. There's a connection at the assistant principal level. And then there's a very formalized mentoring support plan for our teachers, which includes a part-time employee that we have that kind of coordinates that and brings them together and works through that. So there is a formalized mentoring program at multiple levels.
These leadership approaches extend, I would presume, into the operational side of the house, too. Do we have mentors over there in the?
I can't answer that, how that drives. So many of those jobs are individualized, you know, that they've got one person, but there may be some connections. I would assume that they're coming together and they're providing
Yeah.
support across the board.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
have
please.
something. I just want to say, I think outside looking in, pretending I'm not a teacher, I have no knowledge of what's going on. I think this is great to show the public how little things add up and make teams. So thank you for this presentation. I think it, you know, it kind of shows what we do without getting into the weeds, so to speak. I do have just kind of a suggestion, or maybe you do it, but do you do strategic planning with the new principals at all, and kind of show them what we're looking for or what maybe they're looking for? If they're
Yeah, love the new strategic plan that the board enacted last year. It's so much simpler for us to use. That was a bigger challenge for us in previous years because it was so expansive. And so the board's more narrow view, this is what the charge is, using the word there, if you will. Yes, we do that in the orientation with our principals, and it comes up with that strategic planning and bringing that forward back every year as we work with our principals. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Oh, I have just one more.
Oh,
And then you're on.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I also like that you brought in veteran teachers with the new teachers, because I think some veteran principals offer something different, and their way may not be something that is everyone's way, but at least it gives you an insight or motivation, because I pick up on that a lot, the motivation, like Miss Capps, the motivation of how she was capturing kids' hearts, and we did that whole, kind of.
Activity.
Yeah. The motivation on that, and, you know, that to me was exciting. It kind of brings that teacher excitement that you get in the beginning of the year. So, I think that was just wonderful that you had those activities at this leadership, conference, I guess you can, or retreat, I guess we call them now, right? So thank you for that too, because I think that helps a lot, and it just kind of gives you just a little glimpse of what maybe a veteran principal is doing that you can incorporate into your own school, so.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell.
Ms. Bruno?
Yeah, I really want to congratulate both of you. I thought your presentation was just terrific, and it just shows how you're getting consistency, you know, throughout the schools. And I'm a big advocate of mentors. It's so important. We all learn from each other, and I just want to say, I thought your presentation was absolutely fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to attend every one of your
Well, you're always welcome.
Okay.
You're
But
always
I
welcome.
also want to tell you that our activity that we did the other day, I was away with my family this weekend, and there was a big group of us, and, you know, who's sitting around looking at their phone and doing this? And I said, okay, I have an activity. And we did it. And they're all looking at me like, where did you get this from? It was great. But thank you. And I really have to thank Molly for that. She did a super job.
She did do a great job with that. It's capturing kids'
Yeah, I
hearts
loved it.
activity, and it really was a home run, and there were a number of home run activities throughout the 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to say this, Dr. Locklear, I think, mentioned it at one point during the leadership retreat. We have tremendous leaders.
Mm-hmm.
We are very lucky with the leaders that we have. We got the opportunity to kind of stand back and watch. I think our high school principals, maybe at that point, were running an activity with everybody else. And we are blessed in Moore County to have the quality of leaders at all levels that we have. And I can honestly say, in interacting with a number of other people in similar roles around the state and the country, when I have the opportunity to interact with them, they don't feel as lucky and as blessed as we do with the people that we have. And I just wanted to throw that out as we talk about building leaders.
Well, thank you both. It was wonderful.
I do want to say one thing, that when we broke into the small groups and the principals were bringing back what they had gotten from previous years, their, you know, what they had learned, and I just went in and asked if I could eavesdrop. I didn't say anything. I was wanting to just hear what everyone was talking about. Something I heard consistently was that they were listening to people, and there's great value in just being able to be a sounding board for someone when either there's a positive or if there's a struggle. If you just get listened to, and that's what a great leader is someone who listens and gleans from what they're hearing. And it was just very encouraging. The atmosphere was fantastic, and I think Dr. Locklear is right that we'll have the best year yet. And the yet is that's the pivotal word right there, because it's just starting.
Just one more thing, just to piggyback off of Dr. Metcalf and our new vice chair. We do have, for the most part, really good leaders in our schools, and that just reflects great leadership up here at central office, so we really
Thank you, sir.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got COSIN, Trusted Learning Environment. Cosine, tangent. See, I remembered just only that much from math class.
What does that stand for exactly?
It's the Consortium of School Network. It's one of those, they started with one remit and it just stuck, and everybody knows them as COSIN. Kind of like the state has MCNC, which stands for Microcomputer Center of North Carolina, and it means a whole lot more than that now. So
Lord have
people
mercy.
just call them COSIN, people just call them MCNC. So.
Okay, but I'll bet you they really are thinking about cosine.
Oh,
It's our new math, that's our new math focus. So.
This is a test.
This is I think a timely presentation Kent has prepared and really had in the hopper to share with the board for a few months now, but I think the time is right. We've had discussions about technology, we've had discussions about data privacy, protecting our student and staff privacy and data. And Kent and his team have done a tremendous job and are committed to doing that at the highest level possible. And so Kent's got a brief presentation just to update the board and share a little information with our public. So Kent?
Yes, thank you,
and
Dr.
Jamie?
Locklear.
Thank you.
Nope. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll do that. So, I've heard the board, and our team has heard the board often express their concerns around data privacy, and wanted to make sure that you and the community were aware of the work that we have in progress, where we are, where we intend to go. The COSIN framework is designed to protect our student and staff and our district data. You know, it's important to remember all of this is covered by federal and state laws and our Moore County Schools policy, you know, FERPA, COPPA, North Carolina General Statute, and we have our MCS policies regarding that. We have to be very careful because it contains personally identifiable information and other protected data. You know, both our student and staff data has address information, you know, home phone numbers and those sort of things. And there's other things that are non-PII specifically, but we should still be protected. So our educational records, our state UID numbers, employee ID numbers, those kind of things we need to take care of. We try to remember this has value to legitimate and criminal organizations alike. It can be used for sales and marketing research. It can be used for malicious and criminal activity. And one of the messages that we're trying to get out both within our community and also to the teachers as well is you have to remember free is not really free. This is one of the things that the reason they're offering a lot of things for free is because they want this data. So that's part of what we're educating the district and our staff members about. So the COSIN Trusted Learning Environment, it's a trusted learning seal. It's the nation's only privacy framework designed specifically for school systems. It helps K-12 schools and districts build strong, effective privacy programs and a culture of trust and transparency with the community. Earning the TLE seal is a mark of distinction, signaling that the recipient has taken strong, measurable steps to help protect the privacy of student data. And the TLE seal program requires school systems to have implemented high standards for student data privacy protection around the 5 core practices. And I'm going to go through those: leadership, business, data security, professional development, and classroom. So what I wanted to go through is where we are with these. We're in the process of pursuing this seal. Our goal is to, throughout this year, reach the state where we can apply for the TLE seal and hopefully receive it. So starting with leadership, that defines the areas of leadership understanding of data privacy, required district roles, and policies and procedures at the district level. So this presentation is part of our leadership. Your concern as a board member is part of our leadership understanding. Having strong policies, board policies on privacy. We've discussed this in our senior staff and in our academic and student support services about student data privacy and building our processes related to that. One of the big things that we have is a data security agreement that we've developed with Schwartz Law that now we require every vendor that deals with student and staff data has to sign this data security agreement as part of our contract process. Things where we need to go is staff capacity for data privacy. It's educating our staff, making sure that everybody at all levels understands this. Communication with the community. We have some things to share out with the community regarding data privacy. This is one of the first steps of it. Getting this information on our website is important regarding that as well. Continuing resources for data privacy and security. So that's making sure that we have both the staff resources and technological resources for data privacy and security. Our business practices, delivering business practices that support and maintain proper data privacy and security. So where we are today is we have a program review process for all new programs. So we have a standard process and procedure. Everybody loves hearing processes and procedure. If a school wants to implement a new program that is going to deal with student data, they must go through this approval process and make sure that they've gone through these steps to have that program implemented. Our Vector Safe Schools, our learning platform, has modules on cybersecurity. Our More Engaged, we presented at the More Engaged to build the base knowledge with teachers as well so that they understand the importance of student data privacy. And again, mentioning again the data security agreement that we developed with Schwartz Law that all vendors have to sign. We have some areas of focus coming up. We have to review all our legacy programs. for proper data security. So that's a process where we're getting all the information, what's in use in the district, and going back and reviewing and making sure that every single vendor we deal with is using proper data security procedures. Leveraging the tools that we have. I think we've presented to the board about our NetRef tools, our Google G Suite to identify what's called shadow IT programs. You know, just somebody can go out and go on a website and have students sign up for that. We have abilities to go and find those things, take a look more closely at how they're being used, and then make sure they're being used appropriately. Requiring mandatory recurring training on data security. So that's the next step we need to make. We've provided training. We need to make it mandatory and make it recurring. And using our simulation tools to identify staff needing additional training. The state provides us some resources, for instance, to do phishing simulations. We send out a message and you see who responds to it. And then you say, okay, that person should have noticed that that was a phishing message. They may need to have some additional training. So data security, that's our specifics of the data protection and the retention policies, technical details of our systems and protocols for security, our disaster recovery, and our business continuity processes. So where we are today, we have a yearly technology audit that's part of our finance audit process. We had an MCNC cyber hygiene assessment in 2020. The state had some resources to actually go to all districts and do a very comprehensive assessment of our district setup in terms of the physical security, our policies and procedures, and so on and so forth. We rated very highly in terms of our network security and what we had in place. One of the things that was identified, and you'll see it in here, that we do need to do some building on both our recurring training, our recurring knowledge, and policies regarding security. Offsite data replication. We have, at MCNC, we have a full offsite replica of our data center here in Moore County Schools as a disaster recovery tool. And then data protection in the Moore County Schools systems. We have two-factor authentication on all our Google accounts, which is critical to making sure that when you log in, you are you, and data leak prevention reporting. And these are part of the tools that are available in our Google G Suite platform. Additional areas of focus, additional data security on physical devices. That's something to implement on, especially critical physical devices. If somebody steals a device, they can't get access to the data on it. Generator for our Moore County Schools data center. That's finally in process. And full disaster recovery simulation. That's a checklist item that we have not gone through that we do need to go through, where we basically say, okay, we're going to pretend it's a disaster. We're going into data recovery and see that everything is operational. Expanded and documented business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Again, we think we know what we need to do, but having these things documented and mapped out is important. Professional development. Professional development needs around data privacy and security, and resources for parents, so parents can understand both what we're doing and what they can do to help protect their student data. We have our Vector and Safe Schools modules on cybersecurity. The more engaged presentations, again, what we mentioned March 3rd, that was a specific one, but we're going to continue that, making sure teachers are aware of both our procedures and policies and also why it's important to follow them, and getting information on our Moore County Schools Technology website. We do have work to do on this, making the training required yearly. Security simulations, again, it's a similar situation to identify staff needing additional training, and our data security information for parents to make this front-facing, sort of like our curriculum. You know, these are the tools that are in use, making sure the community knows these are the protections we have in place, and that's just part of this process of making sure that folks are aware of that. Our classroom, for the classroom practices, that defines classroom practices for teachers to promote online safety for students, model good stewardship of student data, follow procedures on vetting new programs, and communicate with parents on student data security. So where we are today, we have digital integration facilitators that they provide regular training, and they do the more engaged sessions. They talk about this when they're teaching teachers about the various online platforms, and lessons using online resources to incorporate good security practices. So we have some incorporated for the students themselves. Again, these are things that area of focuses that we can grow on. New digital learning standards for students. So making sure that this is data security and understanding these things are part of lesson plans and teacher training. Improving our program approval process. That's what I talked about as the standard process for if a new program needs to be approved. This is what you need to go through. And we're getting ready to implement and launch that for this year. And improvements for the teacher communications platform. Getting us standardized on a single platform that follows all data security requirements for communicating from teachers to the community. Just wanted to make everyone aware that also North Carolina DPI is taking this data security seriously as well. They are, a correction to this slide, they've actually pushed off the full implementation of the their data security standards to January 1st of 2024. This basically goes through all the requirements that they have. It's even more extensive than what we're doing with our data security agreement. We have to get vendor readiness assessment reports. They actually have to provide you with their data security audits so that you can review them before you actually go into a contract with them. There's a lot of moving parts to that, and that's one of the reasons why they pushed it on to January 2024. We are continuing to build with any vendor that wants to go through this process with us and get ahead of this. We absolutely are encouraging them. Some of our vendors already are fully compliant with the North Carolina process, but we still require at the very minimum our Schwartz Law data security agreement for all vendors. Just also wanted to make the board and the community aware of what we have in place for internet security and internet safety to comply with the Children's Internet Protection Act. We ensure student safety on the internet through a variety of measures. Our internet filter for all student device use, and that restricts access to materials harmful to minors. It's in place on student devices on or off campus. They're always subject to the internet filter on our devices, whether they're here at Moore County Schools or they're using a device at home. The access restrictions are based on grade level, and the administrators at the schools can actually make the filter levels more restrictive if they feel it's appropriate for that student. The classroom, we actually have presented to the board about the NetRep platform that gives the teachers the control. I want to turn off the internet. I want my children to only work on this one site. That's additional safety and capacity that they have. And then, of course, we've got the Moore County Schools policy on acceptable use of technology and electronic media. So, and I'm available for any questions. Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Eklund, first off, I want to say that, you know, you're proactive in what you do, and I don't want you to think that your hard work goes unnoticed, because it really doesn't. One of the things that we talked about was the processes and procedures, which I'm very thankful that we're taking that proactive stance. And I'm guessing the online safety and data agreement, that's kind of like an NDA, I'm assuming, but different?
Well, it specifically specifies what they must do to protect student data. They're not allowed to de-identify it. They're not allowed to give it to third parties. It makes sure that there's an understanding that we have ownership of that data. If we end the contract with them, they need to destroy or, quote, return the data to us, those sort of things. It goes to the details of ensuring that they have. And also, it also specifies that they must meet industry standards for data security for their site, like, you know, SOC 2, those sort of things.
Last thing, if you would just extend to your team how much we appreciate it. I'm pretty sure it's a consensus of the board, but just express that to them, please.
No, thank you. Yeah, I'm privileged to work with such a great team. So.
Other board members?
I just wanted to ask about the access to restrictions. Could you explain that a little bit more? You said that the principal has access to restrict certain things.
So the internet filter is set up in such a way that the what's available on the internet is on a large scale, a sort of 10,000-foot view, is appropriate to that grade level. So
Okay.
A middle schooler can see more than a kindergartner, and a K through 5, and a high school student can see more than a middle schooler. All of them restricted from what would be considered inappropriate or very inappropriate materials. But say you had a high schooler that either because of a parent concern or because of just something that's going on in the classroom, this student needs to really be focused on more appropriate materials. A principal can just make a setting in PowerSchool that says, okay, that student is now at a more restrictive level. They're at the middle school level, and it's or if it's really concerning, it could be taken all the way down to the elementary level. And so you can only see educational websites. You can't see more general websites. And so that's something that the principals have access to. It used to be that it had to go through our department. They said, well, we want these students to have this. And we said, no, let's build something that you as a principal can say, okay, this student needs to have, for whatever reason, needs to have more restrictive internet access. They can just make one change in PowerSchool, and then we fully automated it to set their grade level. So.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
One last thing. Well, never mind. We'll keep on going.
Anybody else? Okay, I wanted to thank you.
Oh, I remember what it was.
Okay, all right, now, let's do it.
Okay, so you were saying that the principals can reduce access?
Yes.
Let me ask this, with high school students having to do research and this and that, would it be feasible or would it be a good idea? Or what's your opinion on, or even if it's possible to allow the teachers to expand on, or less restriction on that research, and then, at the end of the day, turn it back down? I don't know, that's probably.
Yeah, that may be a little bit more difficult. Now, one thing that we do communicate to the parents of St. Helens Community College students, for instance, they have slightly higher level access because for their St. Helens Community College courses, they need to have a little bit more access that the community college requires them to have access to. We still block what would be, considered very inappropriate things, but they may have more access to more mature materials, just regarding, policies and things like that. Really what the control that the teachers have is to make things more restrictive in the classroom, to say, okay, I need my kids to focus on just their schoolwork, or everybody needs to put their devices down
No
and
solitaire.
pay attention. So, yeah. Opening things up is a little bit more difficult. You kind of start at your highest level and then you work your way down. So, what we would encourage in those cases where there's something where we simply cannot allow the students to have because it would just be a concern that it's inappropriate, we would recommend that the teacher, you share this with your students directly. You show it on in the classroom. There's some video sites that we can't open up because it's simply there's too much inappropriate materials there, but the teacher may have access to it, so the teacher would show it in the classroom, and that's how the students would have access to it. So.
Yes, anybody else? Yeah, just let me say that appreciate everything you and your team are doing, and especially this shows that we do have a commitment to what's called 21st century learning. And we are a 21st century school, which I think should be important to those people who are even now considering which school am I going to send my children to. We have the best of the regular literature, the books, the hard copies. They'll be reading that, but they're also going to get the best of 21st century cyber education, and they're going to get the best of security. So we appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going over to pending action discussion. Google Suite G for educational licensing and school years.
Thank you, Chair Levy. In Kent's presentation, this segues right into this. This is really I'll let Ken explain it because he'll be able to do it a lot better than me. But this is basically our base system that we utilize for what we do with our students and staff here in our district. And let me also say that, we were talking earlier, and we were talking about best practices and leadership development, how fortunate we are to have great leaders. Kent is one of them. And we're very fortunate as a school district to have someone with his expertise leading our instructional and operational technology. Don't forget that part of our technology systems is making sure we get our paychecks and making sure our folks get paid, and we have communication systems and things of that nature. But in the instructional side of the equation is also obviously really about our core business. So Kent does that very passionately. So with that, Kent, if you'll give us an overview of this, and this is for moving forward with this, our base system for the next 3 years, utilizing both ESSER funds and state and local funds. Kent?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Dr. Locklear. Yeah, this is a request to approve a contract to continue our Google G Suite for Education platform. Unfortunately, they're raising the price on this platform during the pandemic, like a lot of vendors. They made a lot of stuff available at a discounted price. Moving forward, however, they've gone back to their normal pricing platform. We've been able to leverage the TIPS Cooperative Purchasing Agreement, which provides a 10% discount off their basic pricing for a 3-year agreement with annual payment, and they've also agreed to add an additional 10% contract discount. Under this contract, the yearly cost is reduced to $48,833 for a total savings over 3 years of $49,355.46. We've already identified to cover this through the first year through ESSER II funds that will be reverted if unspent, and then the plan would be to, in subsequent years, to cover this through local or state technology funding sources. And I'm available for any questions regarding this.
Anyone?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes,
Dr. Locklear, how much more ESSER money do we have?
I can't answer that off the top of my head, but ESSER II funds, you're required to spend those by September 30th of this year, and then ESSER III goes into September of 2024. And so our total of ESSER 1, 2, 3 was somewhere around $28 million, but we've been spending that down, and about 40% of that was for capital projects. So I think we've had a good strategy with spending that on one-time funding, one-time costs, and you'll see another item on here with 2 activity buses that we're using ESSER funds on too, which we committed to purchasing 6. Well, the board approved purchasing 6 when we put those ESSER budgets together. But
We'll get to that.
to answer your question, I can't tell you off the top of my head how much we have left, but we certainly can get the board that information, and we'll circle back with it.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I did just want to comment that I saw that it was very strategic, the spending, and I appreciate the forethought in how we're spending those funds.
Thank you.
Okay. And anyone else? Thank you very, very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Atkins.
Thank
We appreciate all the hard work that you and your team have been doing.
Thank you very much.
Adoption of a revised 2023-2024 calendar for Southern Middle School. And I believe we have Mr. Kinsecki there to tell us a little bit about that. Dr. Locklear?
Yes, sir. The board may recall, Mr. Kinsecki came to the board last year to request a modified calendar, which a Restart School can utilize a modified calendar. That's one of the options that a Restart School can use with the charter-like flexibility. And I think Mr. Kinsecki's coming back to request that same type of flexibility for this year, but starting it in October. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Kinsecki. Welcome, Mr. Kinsecki. Glad to have you this morning.
Thank you all, Chair. This is a similar plan to what we did last year. We're just starting the school year off adding minutes as opposed to waiting until January 4th, which is what we did last year. And with that bank time, we've converted 7 days into flexible learning days. 2 of those days were already early release days, and then the others were standard days because the time has already been accrued by every student. And this gives us a chance to have targeted students come in. Last year, we did this 4 times, and we started this whole process in January. And it worked out to be somewhere around 125 to 135 students came in each time, and it allowed the entire staff to have a more intensive time with those students. Most students rotated through an academic course. Some students rotated in with the counselors and worked on some social skills. And it was by invitation, and it was voluntary by the students and parents. And almost all the students who were invited came. Yeah. It's not a comprehensive, reteaching process, but it's part of what we do. And overwhelmingly by the teachers, they were very supportive of it. And the parents were neutral to positive 100%. I had no negative out of the 600 families. I didn't have anybody come in with a major concern at all from the very beginning all the way through the end. So the staff was supportive of it, and so the school improvement team elected to maintain the extra 15 minutes, which is already approved. We've, I think back in April, so our school day's extra 15 minutes long, and this is the way we'd like to utilize that additional time.
questions?
Yeah. I just would like to say that, you know, you are a strong leader. You are one of the best principals that we have, and your forethought is being shown right here, and I know I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I agree with that.
Other members?
I have a question. Did you notice a difference in, from August to January, from January to the end of the year as far as behavioral?
Let me just turn this off real quick.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm reflecting on that. I'm trying to think. There's different pockets where there's behavior challenges. I think that having that day to focus on specific students behavior-wise was a benefit,
Yeah.
is what I would say, yes.
Great.
And some of the students who came in, one of the reasons we wanted to have that time is to have them have an extra 90 minutes or 45 to 90 minutes that day to sit down and really reflect and have the staff have the time to do that.
Right.
When there's 600 students in the building,
It's hard.
it's a stretched out situation, whereas now you have 125 kids in the building, and it lets everybody give the appropriate attention to those students.
Great. Thank you.
One last thing.
Yes.
Sure.
Are we doing anything for other schools that Mr. Quinsicky's doing, like coming up with creative ways to help?
Yeah, I think you'll see some plans from the elementary schools shortly. You know, we have new principals there, so they're assessing and developing some creative plans. There's some work around that. This is a little bit, what Sean's doing here at the middle school is a little bit more of a challenge at the elementary school because of daycare responsibilities of the younger children with parents. So there's been some question and they have to be much more strategic perhaps at the elementary to do what he's doing.
Right.
But they've got some other creative ideas that are coming.
Perfect.
Other members of the board? And Mr. Kusecki?
Morning.
Ken.
Oh, Ken, I'm sorry.
According to the Lynch report, you've still got a five teacher vacancy in school. Is that still the case?
Yeah, just the last couple days of July, we had some turnover. We were closing the gap, and then it kind of jumped back in. Yes, sir.
Okay. What can this board do to help you out in that regard?
It's a great question. It really is. I mean, it is a national issue, so it's hard to be too acute with the focus, but there's a lot of pieces to this, and it's a complicated issue. It isn't just they want to be a teacher somewhere else. For person who resigned a week and a half ago, took an IT job. It's just a different focus in terms of options. You know, the days of committing to 30 years as a teacher or committing to 30 years of anything for younger folks is just different. It's just different now. So we're constantly, I'm going to try to make an 11 o'clock interview today, and I'm for a science position, and I'm willing to be flexible and maybe not a full-time if the person doesn't, if the person has another schedule. I'm willing to try whatever we can do. So I was just texting before I came in here with the staff and saying, if she wants to do this, let's look at this time of day, because it'll maximize our time with students and minimize the amount of subs we might have to start with. So it's just being super creative is what I would say. And if something comes into your ear that you're hearing from somewhere else, open it up and explore it, because a couple more people in the room together might take that little idea that you could shut down and they could open it back up again. So just having longer conversations about it and never quitting on any opportunities to have a chance to hire folks, because we need to be as flexible as possible.
Another opportunity for best practices.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And thank you for your hard work.
appreciate it, thank you.
Other members of the board? Mr. Krasicki, let me just say that one thing that I appreciate is your very unique ability to think outside the box, and to come up with these things that no one else has thought about. If they have thought about it, I don't know what went into your research or whatever, but I think as a board, certainly appreciate your ideas, and we're happy to work with you in any way we can to make those ideas a reality.
Appreciate it, sir. Yeah, it's definitely a team. That's how you do it. Just get together and throw out the ideas. That's what we do at Southern Middle for sure.
Do you think you can make it back to Southern Middle in 29 minutes?
Yes. They'll get started without me, but at least I can meet the person, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything
All right,
else?
thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. The Exceptional Children's Contract Services, Dr. Locklear.
Yes, sir. This is another, you've seen, the board has seen a couple iterations of these over the last couple of meetings as Ms. Cooper and Neil are preparing for the next school year of the services that our students will require. And so I'm going to let Neil and Mike introduce this. This is kind of a smaller one because we had to make some adjustments to what we were originally going to bring to you, but I'll let Neil walk us through that. Neil?
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, pleasure to be with you today. I am here to summarize a private transportation service contract based on IEP need and federal requirements that are student-specific in this case, with the notion that this is the most cost-effective option that we found with this contract, and that these services are obviously student-specific and may not exceed $60,000 for the next year through June 30th of next year, budgeted through our IDEA federal grant, PRC 060.
And I neglected to introduce Neil Waters, our Assistant Director for Exceptional Education. Most of you are familiar with Marcy Cooper, who's our Director, but Neil is our number 2 there and does a great job.
I'm on
And his
sub
first
duty
presentation to the board. I
Yes,
think.
It is,
first time
yeah.
he's been able to be in front of the board. Ms. Cooper wasn't available today, so, sorry, Neil. I should have
That's okay.
introduced you.
That's all right.
It just hit me as you started talking. So,
No worries at all.
Certainly, Neil and Mike and myself are open to any questions the board may have.
Yes.
Just one question. Is this just for one child?
This is for one student, yes, sir.
And by the way, Dr. Locklear, federal government is reimbursing us for this, right? That doesn't come out of our local funds.
It comes out of our IDA federal grant, is where this funding is coming from, so yes. The short
Okay.
answer is yes.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
yes.
what I wanted, that's what I wanted to know and assure the public. Yes, anyone else? Okay, thank you very, very much, we
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Okay, 2023 consolidated application for funding overview, federal programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have Dr. Lisa Scott, Director of Federal Programs, CTE, and Grants. Let's see if I can add something else on there, Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott is with us to give an overview of our federal programs, consolidated applications. Each year, we're required to get the board endorsement of this. And so, Dr. Metcalf and Dr. Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Another one of our outstanding leaders, Dr. Locklear.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hope everybody's doing well. Had a great weekend. All right. So this year you can see our past 4 years allotment for our federal funds. This is our Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV funds. The document that was provided to you ahead of time kind of explains how we receive funding for each of these funds. So if we start with Title I, that is our funding that we receive for our, based on our free and reduced lunch numbers. So we submit information into a system for DPI. They see how many kids we have who qualify for free and reduced lunch. They use their formula. They provide us with the fundings that we receive to support our Title I schools and district initiatives that support our Title I schools. These funds have been used and are used for our instructional facilitators that support our Title I schools, our parent liaisons and translators at 2 of our schools, our homeless liaison, Ms. Chamberlain, who does a ton of work for our students. She supports our students in foster care and homelessness, and this year will also be supporting an initiative of EduCore tutors, which will be in some of our low-performing schools of Title I to help support our students. Funds are distributed to these schools that are identified with 40% or higher free and reduced lunch applications. We provide each of these schools a per-pupil allotment. As well, out of these funds, charter and private schools are eligible to apply for some of these funds through what's called equitable services. Currently this year, we do not have any of those schools applying for Title I funds. The Title I schools for this school year are Aberdeen Elementary, Cameron Elementary, Carthage Elementary, Cranes Creek Middle, Ely's Middle, High Falls Elementary, Robbins Elementary, Southern Pines Elementary, Southern Middle, Bass Lakeview Elementary, Westmore Elementary, and West Pine Elementary. So we have 12 schools that receive funding this year out of Title I. Title II funds are for supporting effective instruction. These are allocated based off 20% is allocated distributed based on the relative population of children we serve ages 5 to 17. 80% is distributed based on the relative population of children ages 5 to 17 from families with incomes below the poverty line. These funds are being utilized to provide professional development to our new teachers with new teacher orientation, our beginning teacher program, our More Learning Conference, our National Board Certified Teachers, our administrators, and summer curriculum work where our teachers are devoting their time in the summer to develop curriculum that we use throughout the school year. Title III funds are for our English language acquisition programs. These funds are allocated on the basis of annual headcount of our LEP students, including immigrant students and youth. Each eligible PSU receives an amount in the same proportion that the population of English learners in schools is served by the eligible unit, bears to the population of English learners in schools served by eligible units in the state. Clear as mud. So it's for our LEP students and our English as second language students. I don't know why we have to make things so difficult. These funds support our English language learners, our materials for our ESL teachers, professional development for our ESL teachers, and our Hispanic Family Academies, which are run by Ms. McDonald and Ms. Rivera, which are absolutely wonderful. And I know some of y'all have been to those. And our parents really appreciate all of that support as well. Title IV funds are for student support and academic enrichment. So this allocation is eligible to schools on the basis of their relative share of funds under Title I Part A, which is the first allotment of money, for the preceding fiscal year. No LEA may receive an allocation less than $10,000, and then it goes on to say that if it's less than $10,000, your restrictions are not as. So the funds this year will be used to support our Community Learning Center at Pinckney with their online tools and materials and supplies. It will also support our Connect Online Academy, so for their online software and their materials and supplies. This year, we are using these funds to provide the iReady Teacher Toolkit to every school in the district. So in the past, our schools have had to fund that themselves, and with these funds, we had enough that we felt this was a good, valuable resource to provide to all of our schools this year. Awesome. And then Capturing Kids' Hearts is coming out of this, and this is to sustain the schools that we currently have and make sure that we are training any new staff for those schools so that they know what the process is for Capturing Kids' Hearts. Questions?
Yeah. Members of the board?
I just have a well, I want to ask.
Okay.
If you do a Capturing Kids' Heart training, I would love for you to let me know. I would love to be involved just to see what that is more in depth all about, if I'm allowed to.
We have one coming up, and I'll reach out to you.
Okay,
Make sure
perfect.
you
Thank
reach out.
I was fortunate to participate in one. It was
And all board
very
members.
I
good.
was gonna say, could the whole board be?
All
copied
board
in that
members
for
are
free?
welcome, and I'll let you know the
Okay.
date. I don't know it off the top of my
That's
head.
fine.
That's fine. Thank
It's
you.
coming up.
This is proof that we are seen elsewhere, because you're especially talking about homeless students in foster care. These are unique things that we do in the public schools.
Absolutely.
That are certainly our privates, I'm sure, don't do, and a lot of our charters don't do, although they're supposed to take all comers. Somehow, they all wind up with us, but I want to say that we're up to the challenge, and we welcome them, and we're going to make sure that each one of those students is a success. So I appreciate your hard work.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, award of bids for gym modernizations.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Purvis and I are pretty excited to be able to bring you a recommendation for awarding bids for the renovations.
He's fired up.
I am. I'm fired up that we're finally moving forward with this, or at least a recommendation for awarding the bid at Westmore, High Falls, and Cameron Elementary Schools. Ms. Purvis and her team worked very hard. We had to issue bids twice.
Yes, sir.
And the latest were open on Thursday. And so it was a last minute addition to the agenda, but I felt like it was time sensitive. So appreciate Ms. Purvis's hard work to get this ready for the board. So Jenny, tell us
Thank
about
you.
this, please.
And thank you all for letting us scoot this in at the last minute, but I know you are as excited as we are to finally get some forward movement on this. Sealed single prime bids for the modernization and renovation of gyms at Cameron, High Falls, and Westmore were opened August 2nd, 2023. We had 3 companies who submitted bids this time. Bar Construction Incorporated, $3,408,000. HM Kern Corporation, $2,616,000. And Sanford Contractors, $3,730,000. The apparent low and responsive bidder is HM Kern Corporation. Staff recommends that we award the bid to them in the amount of $2,616,000. HM Kern completed renovations, including HVAC, windows, lighting, and replacing exterior siding on Cameron Park Elementary in Orange County, as well as a renovation and modernization of locker rooms at Northwood High School in Chatham County. And currently, they're constructing a new central services building for Harnett County Schools, so they do have school experience. This project will be paid for with county bond premium funds, $2,616,000. Questions?
Members of the board, any questions?
No, just to thank you for getting the, not say get the ball rolling, because it's already been rolling, but it's
Yes,
greatly
ma'am.
appreciated to see that it's.
Yes,
actively
ma'am.
going.
We do hope, with the, if the board approves this on Monday night, then we will be issuing the notice to proceed, and we would anticipate that we would be finished with these 3 projects no later than probably the middle of April, maybe before then.
Very good,
Awesome.
thank you.
Yes. Anyone else? Well, I wanted to say, Dr. Locklear is fired up, and the air conditioners are gonna cool us down. So, I had to say that, I'm sorry. But thank you very, very much. Thank you for your hard work,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Purvis.
Thank you all for your support.
Also, I want to tell you of the hard work that you're also doing on our buses.
Thank you, sir.
Which is, because that is always, that's a problem throughout the state. And I've talked to you, and you are doing some real hard work to ensure that our students are going to have a better busing experience than last year.
Yes, sir.
And that we're going to get these students to school, which is always a struggle to find drivers and the like. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the purchase of the new activity buses.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is, as the board may recall, in our ESSER budget that was approved by the board, ESSER 2 and 3 budget, 6 activity buses were approved for purchase, which was it's certainly important because we have an aging fleet of activity buses. Our buses are used not just for athletics, but certainly that is a significant portion of it, but also for performing arts, as well as field trips and for our students to go various places. So this is certainly something that we're fortunate to have the ESSER funds, but we also work to build a reimbursement fund, if you will, from school use. And so we were able to move forward with 3 this year. So that's what Ms. Purvis is presenting to the board. So I hope I didn't steal your thunder,
Nope,
Jenny, but I
you're
want to give a little background on what we have. We've purchased 4 so far with those
Correct.
ESSER funds, and these are the final 2. So, Jenny?
Yes, sir. I will just, before I go into the executive summary, share that, as Dr. Locklear said, we have an aging fleet. The new buses will be assigned to high schools because we do have most of our travel, the longest travel on sports teams is at our high schools. However, we'll then take the buses that they're replacing at those high schools and assign them to middle schools so that our middle schools will have dependable travel because we see that lots of those are having issues. So just know that the buses that these are replacing will get passed down to our middle schools. They don't have quite as far travel times in terms of sports. And as he said, these buses are shared in terms of field trips. And we do make sure, if at all possible, that we give the newest buses for student transportation field trips back and forth. So those are assigned from the high schools out to various elementary or middles. All right, staff issued a request to for activity bus manufacturing companies to submit a proposal for the purchase of 3 activity buses. The following 3 companies responded: White's IC Bus, $130,758. Gregory Pool Bus Sales and Service, $137,708. And Carolina Thomas, $131,737. The apparent low and responsible bidder is White's IC Bus, and it's recommended for award of the 3 activity buses. 2 buses will be paid for with previously approved ESSER funds, and the third will be paid with Transportation 706 funds. Are there questions?
Can you explain Transportation 706 funds?
Yes, sir. So when activity buses are used for field trip purposes and are charged as such, the extra amount of money that goes into the 706 account is then used to replenish the fleet. So that is money earned from extra travel.
Members of the board?
We already approved these, do you know when we approved Get Activity Buses, what?
At
when
the
that was?
beginning of your ESSER approval projects, which would have been, Dr. Locklear, 2019, would that have been?
2020, I think.
I believe it was
2020.
December 2020.
Okay,
The board approved those ESSER budgets.
okay.
So I would just
Oh, I'm
like,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
no, the vice chair, please.
Just for the benefit of the public, if we could just briefly readdress what ESSER funds are, because I know there's a little bit of questions from our audience, and just to remind anyone who may be viewing where those funds came from and why it is important, and we're greatly appreciative to how we're spending them for these
Yes, ma'am.
one-time purchases. Go ahead.
These were one-time funds that were given from the federal government during the COVID pandemic to support school districts and states across the nation. There were 3 iterations of that funding, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3, with different deadlines for spending. These are grant funds, or what I would call one-time funds. So they're not recurring funding source, and so in Moore County, and with the board's support, we're very careful to plan those out so we wouldn't have huge funding cliffs where we were using ESSER funds to pay for people, we're paying for recurring costs. And so there was a focus with our ESSER funds from these federal funds to utilize them for what you'd call one-time costs, like purchasing an activity bus. That's a one-time cost, and it benefits our students, and we were certainly facing with a very aging fleet. So this is one of the reasons. We also had a lot of capital projects, somewhere around $10 to $11 million of capital projects from ESSER funds. The tracks that were just completed at Northmore High School and Pinecrest High School, the track renovations were funded from ESSER funds. So, for 2 years, we also supported for learning recovery, additional teacher assistants. But we phased those out. We were purposeful in knowing that the funds run out, so we've got to phase the teacher assistants out. Unfortunately, we'd love to keep them, but we didn't have that recurring source of funding. So that's some of the examples of some of the things we purchased from that. Also, our first purchase of iReady was from our ESSER funding. Looking at how we recover from the COVID pandemic, having a resource, the iReady was something we also used that for. So that's some of the examples we used with the ESSER funding.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Excuse me,
Yes.
question.
Yes, sir.
I saw a briefing last night that said that SEL funding is ESSER funding, and that it's supposed to run out in late September. Is that correct?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir. That's not correct in our district. We're not, ESSER 2 funding, which is the second phase of funding, you have to have those funds spent by September 30th of this year. ESSER 3, we've got to have those funds spent by September 30th, 2024.
Yeah.
But not in our district. We don't have
Okay.
any run out based on SEL.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. So, I think you're referring to social emotional learning.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't connect to Moore County. Yeah.
Philip has been waiting patiently.
So if anybody can recall, back in 2020, when we purchased 7 buses out of ESSER funds, I was blown away because of the amount of money that we were spending on activity buses versus education. And I want the board to consider, if we go through with this, we're right at $400,000. $400,000, I feel like, can be used in another way, or if we could, somehow break it down from 3 activity buses to one or two. Something where we can take the ESSER funds and apply it to another place. I'm not like a big activity bus fan, obviously, but especially when it comes to ESSER funds. But that's really all I have.
Okay, other members of the board? Well, I guess I'm going to.
I think Stacy wanted to say.
I was just
Oh,
gonna
I'm
say.
sorry. I
when it-
apologize.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say, when it comes to safety, I'm all about safety, so if it's because of those buses are in tough shape, then I do believe we need some. Now, I will say, if you're handing them to the middle school, I wanna make sure that they're safe for middle school children as well, so.
It's not the safety that's the issue, it's the amount of miles that are on the bus. And when
Okay.
you look at that in terms of repairs and maintenance, our high schools travel quite a long distance and are on the road a lot with the
Right.
number of sports teams that they have. Our middle school conference, doesn't put them but about 30 miles from home at the most. So when we consider travel, we consider, if we were to have a maintenance issue with the bus, we certainly are going to take buses off the road if they're not safe. But if we were using an older bus, we certainly would want that to be close to home so that if a bus were to have an issue, our transportation department, our mechanics can get out there quickly. We can take them a bus quickly to replace it. Oftentimes, if we have our high schools traveling, that may be as far as 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So if we have an issue in those buses, it becomes a lot bigger issue.
Thank you.
Bobby,
Yes, ma'am.
One more thing.
Yes.
Just an observation. With all the old buses that we have out back, can we not sell them or do like more actively so that we can kind of offset something?
When you're looking at the yellow school buses that are in the back, we are currently in the process of cleaning that out back there. However, when we sell yellow buses, whatever we get for that purchase goes directly back to the state because those yellow buses are provided from the state. So any money that we make off the sale of cleaning out those yellow buses goes directly back to the state.
How many white buses do we have back?
Not enough to do what we're thinking.
Put some spray paint on it. All right, thank
And
you.
the white buses, Mr. Holmes, that we do have back there are junk. They're cannibalized and not fit to put on the road, which is why we have them put back there. So if we do sell a few of them, and we have sold one or two, we won't get very much for them. It's basically a shell.
The Partridge family needs a new bus. At any rate, speaking of safety, I want to segue into what was just said by Ms. Caldwell. I'm inclined to support the buses, but only if we put seat belts or restraints in those buses. I firmly believe, and I've said for a couple of years now on this board, that the laws of physics are not suspended when kids get on a bus. And there are rollover accidents and the like. Not only that, but kids tend to wander around on the buses. I've seen the films of our school buses, and kids who are not in restraints do walk around and get up, get down, and the like. There are also some discipline problems, but I'm looking at more of it from a safety problem. And when those accidents occur, obviously, it's an accident, nobody has any warning. And when I see those videos, at least of some of the things that we have had, I'd say we really need those restraints. Some states do it. Our state does not mandate it. One of the things that I learned in law school is that just because a state doesn't mandate something, that's no reason why you shouldn't do it. So I did ask Dr. Locklear to get us, I don't know, I guess you haven't had a chance, or maybe you have, to get us an estimate of the cost.
Ms. Purvis has the cost and
Yes, sir.
how long that would take if you did it. I think it's rare in our state.
It is. We reached back out to equip each of the buses that we are proposing here would be $10,000 per bus or an additional $30,000. Because they are not normally produced with that, there would be an 8 to 10 month lead time. We would special order $10,000 extra per bus to add the seatbelts.
How much?
$10,000 per bus.
Well, you know, what is a life worth in a rollover accident? What is a child safety? And, you know, when we have problems aboard a bus, when children are unruly and the like, because they tend to get unruly. I traveled those buses myself when I was a kid. That distracts the driver. And I always am shocked to see that on our buses, the first thing the driver does is take his or her seatbelt and put it on, okay? But the kids back there don't have it. $30,000 in a budget of 180, 90 million, is that what we have? To me, is not a lot of money to assure the safety of students. And I see how the board votes on it, but I'm certainly going to ask at our business meeting that we add that. I'm sorry that it would be a large lead time, but, and I'm sorry that we're, you know, that it's unusual in the state of North Carolina, in the state of Oklahoma, for instance. It's mandated, you know. So maybe if we're gonna be the leaders in North Carolina education, we also ought to be the leaders in student safety. So that's just my feeling about that. Anybody else?
I may have missed this if it was asked. If I did, I apologize. Would that, do you know if we reach out to them to install those, if that changes the time frame that we would be able to receive them? Or could you have that information maybe from the company? What kind of additional time to install them, or if they've already got them pre-made with
They
them?
do not. We
Okay.
reached out. They would make them and install it there. You don't want to retrofit it. It's more expensive and
that's what I figured.
harder to fit.
Okay.
So what we'd want to do, from an economical standpoint, is have the bus made with
Order
the
it like that,
seatbelts.
right, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. And that would possibly change the delivery time?
It would.
Okay.
It would make the delivery time, they gave us 8 to 10 months,
Okay, as opposed to,
as opposed to a month or so
Okay.
that they're already on hand.
okay, just sort out, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would say, just to talk about that, I understand everybody's concern. We want these buses as quickly as possible, but somehow I think, at least I hope, we can wait a little bit of time for the student safety. It's something I've been saying for 2 years, and I hope the board will go along with it. Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just thinking outside my head here. Where are we going to get the $30,000 extra? Do we have that in ESSER funding?
We cannot pull from ESSER funding unless it's already been approved and submitted to the state. So
Okay.
we would have to look for extra local funds to do that.
Thank you.
So we would just be putting seatbelts in activity buses and not yellow buses, correct?
Well, we would be, I would hope that as we acquire the yellow buses,
Yeah.
we would also put them in the yellow buses. But right now, the only reason why I say it for these is because we're buying these. And I think as, you know, certainly we don't want to spend, you know, we can't spend $3, $4, $5 million or whatever it'll cost us to put them all instantly in the buses. But as we acquire the buses, it seems to me to be a good program to put the seatbelts in the buses.
Mr. Purvis,
Yes, sir.
did you say that if we did the seatbelts, we would have to get it approved by the state? Is that what you said?
No, sir. I said, right now, the state does not require it. So mass production of the buses does not include that. So what we would do is special order.
Using what funds? Just local
Local,
funds?
that's what she
Okay.
just said, yeah.
It's tough choice.
Yeah, and I will just add that activity buses are a little bit different in my head because kids are going on there with equipment on, football gear. Putting a seatbelt over that is gonna be harder. And I don't know if it's, I don't know, a regular bus I can see more than an activity bus. but
You
that's
can
just
put it under
my,
the seat.
that's just my
Yeah,
thoughts.
you can put it under the seat. or
Let me put a question to everybody, which doesn't require an answer. Would you ever think of putting a child in your car without an approved safety restraint?
something. No.
You don't have to answer that question. I think we all answer it. So why do we put kids on the road on a bus without proper restraints? You know, I remember back in the days before restraints, and the parents would constantly go back and say, "Sit down, kids, sit down," you know. And actually, when I was about 2 months old, we got into I'm told, we got into an accident. I had 2 stitches over my eye because of it. That's just an anecdote. It's, you know, none of us, you know, and the physics, the laws of physics are not repealed for buses, for activity buses or regular buses. Okay. All right, next.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
That'll be action item.
It is an action item. It is an action item, and I understand it's controversial, but it's not like something new that I've been talking about. Okay. These next two, pardon?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Could we get a 5-minute break, do you think?
Oh, yes, indeed. I'm sorry. Why don't we be back here at 11:10?
Thank you.
calling us back from recess. There are two items, G and H, which were requested to be placed on the calendar by Mr. Hensley. He's not here today. So with the permission of the board, I'm going to take that off the calendar. Is there any objection?
No.
Hearing no objection, those items will be taken off calendar. And we can talk about, with Mr. Hensley later on, about a time to put them back on, should he so desire. The MCS Board Teaching Impact Awards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an item that Mr. Benway brought to my attention, connected somewhat with discussion around best practices. Mr. Benway and I's conversation we were having, and he asked about sharing an idea, and of course this is a requested item from him, of the board having an opportunity when you're visiting classrooms to have an opportunity to recognize great teaching, as I think you called it, Mr. Benway, impact awards, and finding a way to do that. And we've talked some about that, but I'll just turn it over to you, Mr. Benway, and
Okay,
see what
toss the
you want
ball
to
over
share
here.
about that, and
Great.
see how the board wants to potentially move forward.
Okay. Just by way of background, over the course of about 4 months of visiting schools, generally with each visit, there was one particular teacher that had a technique or an innovative approach to teaching a particular part of the subject that was just astounding. I'm just going to pick one of those up at High Falls, a second grade teacher. About 10 o'clock in the morning, the spirit was pretty high. People needed a break. So she said, okay, everybody on the line. And she had painted on the floor 2 lines, each about 10 feet long, one divided into quarters, the other divided into eighths. And the kids were to stand at the head of one line and jump as far as they could, and then tell her what quarter they were in or what eighth they were in, and the equivalent for the person across to the other. So they were reinforcing fractions like I'd never seen before. At the same time, getting all that extra energy worked off. Tremendous reinforcement. There are many examples across the board that I think are worth noting and providing a bit of impact to teachers. And I'd like to be able to, as Dr. Locklear said, present on the spot a kind of recognition for that great work. And at the same time, capture it as a best practice too. Pauline, you were there.
Yes.
What are your?
I totally agree with you. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. And this is not a sort of thing where everybody gets a trophy. This is for unusual, and of course it's timing dependent. We have to be there to see it. But I think it's one way to recognize excellence in the classroom in teaching. We haven't settled, certainly, we haven't discussed really in any detail what kind of a award this might be, but we can get together on that, I think, and work through it.
Yes, sir. One idea we discussed that I'll throw out for the whole board, Mr. Benway, is that we could, and for those, Ms. Bruno and Ms. Caldway may have experienced this when you're in the classroom, and sometimes we call it a CIA award, called in action. It might be something that we print up for the board that you have the opportunity when you're visiting classrooms that you would write a note on one of those called in action teacher impact awards, and you leave it right there with the teacher in the moment. And I think that would be a really positive, at least first step towards this idea. Something I'd throw out for your consideration as well.
And maybe we can get some commercial outfit to provide a lunch at whatever for that teacher, sort of underwrite that particular award or the awards over the course of the year. Anyway, just spitballing here.
Do we have a monthly teacher of the year, or I'm sorry, monthly teacher star, whatever?
Yeah, it's called the
We do-
Apple, Apple,
We do not have that anymore. That's not a
Crane
recurring.
Creek does it all the time.
Yeah, it's a school-based.
School-based, yes.
School-based,
Not a
may do
district,
that at your school, but we don't have a district.
Oh, not district,
plan.
but by school, Cranes Creek, I know they used to give out Apple Awards, which
Yeah.
was just like a teacher of the month type thing.
Yeah, I think Ken's right on point, man. Our teachers are valuable. We have some of the best in the state, I feel like. I think this board needs to recognize all the hard work that the teachers do put into their work. And I think this board needs to be more mindful in expressing their appreciation.
Well, here's an opportunity to do that. So,
Back in the day, they had, and this was when I taught at Pinehurst Elementary, we had kind of a point system where if my class was being caught doing something good, or if I was being caught doing something good, I'd get some points, and then at the end of the month, that classroom would get like a party of some sort, whether it's a reading party, a book party, whatever it was. Do they still do that?
I think different schools do different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't tell you whether Pinehurst Elementary School does that. I know that they do have ways to recognize their teachers at Pinehurst. I think all the schools
Yeah.
do, but the way they've structured it really is led by the school.
Well, that'd be
This-
something great that we could do as a board if we're catching them in the act of that.
Yes.
You know, I would be willing even just to give a $5 gift card to Starbucks or something, you know, just, you know, out of my pocket, not necessarily the board's money, but, you know, something to that effect where they're getting caught doing something great.
And I really agree with that, Stacy and Ken, because I would love to do something that comes from us, and
Yes.
that it was our decision instead of it having be
District.
a
And a board, yeah.
principal's decision,
Or a
or, yes. I really like that idea.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Yeah, there's board recognition.
Yeah, board recognition,
I would,
yes.
I would feel confident that each one of our principals does that on their level already to some degree. And your point is that we need to be reaching out to these teachers and doing it from our own hearts.
Yeah,
and our own-
when we're
yes,
on
yeah,
site and have that
absolutely.
opportunity, yeah.
And,
That's
and you know, it
fantastic.
just doesn't, we don't have to just leave it for teachers. We've seen
Oh,
some
yeah.
principals do some
Oh.
amazing things. So we can just leave it, but I would love that idea.
Again,
Yeah.
the only thing I need from a technical standpoint, I mean, I think we're all kind of in agreement that this is a great idea. But, you know, we want to pass something, or say we're going to do something, we need to have that something, either in the form of a resolution,
Okay.
or on the form of something, so that we know, or you can just work with Dr. Locklear instead to, I'm sure that there's somewhere in there where we can, I don't know if it's getting them a Starbucks award, I can take it out of my pocket too, or a certificate. I have no idea what you want to do. I just know that as a board, we have to do it by resolution so that we know what we're doing. So,
How about if myself and Dr. Locklear work on this a little bit and provide a straw man for your review, and
okay.
we'll go from there, to keep it simple.
Yeah.
That's fine. So my guess is that won't be on our thing for a week from
I don't
Monday.
even think we really even need to vote on.
No, I understand. I
Yeah.
just need, because it's on our pending action and discussion list, and I just wanted to make sure. But I think we're all in agreement with the concept, and if Mr. Benway can get together with Dr. Locklear, if we need to endorse something, we'll endorse it. But that's part of getting our word out,
Yeah.
to let the teachers know that we've got their backs.
The biggest thing is building that rapport
Yes.
with
Right.
them.
Right, I do agree.
Yeah, and I will say too, and this is very old school, but a card or a letter goes such a long
Handwritten.
way.
Oh, it does.
I mean, I spend hours, for all of our new teachers, I write them a letter. And yes, it's very time consuming, but the amount of people that email me back just to say thank you for that is worth it every time. So
Exactly.
that's why I do it. So it's even just something little like that.
That's interesting. My children often ask, where do I go to buy a stamp? Because they're always emailing me. But we all know.
Yep.
We're all old enough to know that. With the exception of our vice chair. I don't know.
She knows.
No, you're young and,
Oh, no, I
doing
like
all that
stamps.
emailing. I'm joking. Okay. At any rate, next item, unless is there something else on this? Okay. We always have to look, Shannon, we always have to look to you for advice on this new technology and
Might be looking to the wrong
all
one.
that, all what the Gen Z is doing. At any rate, retainer agreement for social media, and for the social media class action lawsuit. Dr. Locklear and Mr. Schwartz.
Yes, sir, and I'll turn it right over to our board attorney, Mr. Schwartz. This was discussed with the board at a previous meeting, and at the time, I believe it was the consensus of the board to potentially sign on to this class action suit. So,
Right.
Mr. Schwartz?
Board gave me direction to pursue adding the board to this multi-district litigation. Multi-district litigation is similar to a class action lawsuit, but in a class action lawsuit, you have a representative plaintiff who stands in the place of other people similarly situated. In multi-district litigation, what you have are the plaintiffs in the lawsuit retain their individual identities and cases and file separate lawsuits, and then all of the litigation gets consolidated. In this particular case, there is pending multi-district litigation that's been formed for lawsuits against various social media providers. The multi-district litigation has been consolidated in the Northern District of California. There are more than 80 school boards that have joined the litigation from all over the country, and the litigation is basically against these social media companies on the grounds that they are harming kids with the way that they're set up and with the way that their algorithms are designed to form addictive behaviors. And so some of the claims in the lawsuit are that the defendants' apps have created a youth mental health crisis, that the defendants target children as a core market, who keep kids on their addictive social media platforms, that some of the designs for some of them addict young users, substantially contributing to the mental health crisis, and that there are not safeguards in place such as age verification or parental approval, that the various individual platforms for the defendants, which are Facebook, TikTok, ByteDance, Google, YouTube, Meta, that they have various individual factors in there in each one of those platforms that are contributing to this mental health crisis and these socially addictive behaviors through social media. There's a sample complaint, it's over 200 pages long, that I've forwarded to the chair and the superintendent. But what you have up here right now is the retainer agreement, and this is a retainer agreement with the same law firms that partnered with a number of North Carolina school systems on the Jewel cases and got very good results. They've got a setup where they provide they pay for all the costs up front. So the law firms absorb the costs of court filings, depositions, all of the costs that go into a lawsuit. And if they're successful, then those costs come out of whatever the settlement is or the jury award is at the end of the case. And then their fees also come out of whatever that award is. So the law firms that are in this proposed retainer agreement are law firms with which I worked in the Jewel case and with other clients. It's Ward Black Law. Janet Ward Black is the principal in that firm. And they partner with Baird Mandela's firm in Maryland to represent school boards in this litigation. And then there's a law firm out of San Francisco, the Lead Cabraser firm, that has the lead national counsel in the case. So, they cover their costs, and then their fees combined for all of those law firms are capped at 25% of the total recovery. And then they split that up among themselves, the 25%. I don't participate in any of that. I don't participate in the fee or anything. I'm bringing this to you as a proposal in response to the interest that the board showed when this was first discussed as potential litigation. And so now this is the retainer agreement that I would recommend to you as for the board's approval. And that would, once you sign this agreement, you could sign on the lawsuit with their support.
Let me ask one question. The complaint, does it need to be verified or sworn?
It does, it needs to be, it does not need to be verified or sworn.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay. I did, because there are jurisdictional things in there to which because I'm gonna be signing the complaint, that I probably couldn't swear to, okay, because they're not within my knowledge, but the facts are to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to need to be signing the complaint. You need to sign the retainer agreement, but not the complaint.
Oh, okay, I thought, that okay. How does
Because the
the
attorney
board
signed.
sign the complaint?
The attorney signed for us. Once we enter the.
Oh, the attorney signed for us, okay, all right, that's what I wanted to know, okay.
And this is no cost at all to us, correct?
No cost at all. Your only cost is, you know, the minimal amount you'll see on my bills for interacting with these attorneys. But that'll be very minimal.
That was gonna be my question, is if, I'm not a lawyer, but if it's a long, drawn-out thing, if you would, you know, how much time and effort you'll be putting in reflects our bill.
It'll be
It's-
very, very little.
Okay, very
It'll
good.
just be basically conduit of communication.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. So, that concludes our agenda, except for the need to figure out what's gonna be on the consent agenda. And the only thing I know will certainly not be on the consent agenda is the purchase of new activity buses.
I have everything else as a consent.
Is everything else consent? How does everybody feel about that?
I have yes, but
Anybody?
Which one? The activity bus?
The activity buses clearly need a vote,
Yes.
but
everything else.
the G and H are not going to be on the agenda for next Monday. Or
Or I.
Or,
That's, I was gonna question that one too, for Ken's.
oh, yes, or I.
Yeah.
That's correct. I have that marked out as well. Or I. So we're going to, to maybe make this more clear, G, H, and I will not be on the agenda. What I would propose is everything else go by consent. That would be A, B, C, D, E, and
J.
J, okay? And that the voting item be the purchase of new activity buses.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Okay, if so, that will be our agenda for the 14th. I don't see as we need a closed session.
Actually, Bob, if just,
Yes, go
just
please.
about 5 minutes in closed session. It won't take
Would you
long.
need that? Okay, yeah, all right.
Need a motion.
You need a motion. Is,
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Wait, we need, hold on 1 second.
sidebar.
As we're doing that, we can do board comments.
Well, no, let me get that, let me get this first. I know, we got, what time is it? My heavens,
This
it's
is-
not 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No.
Mr. Chair.
Don't jinx us.
Yes,
We need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1.
Wow.
To discuss student matters that are confidential under 115C402 and 20 U.S. Code 1232G.
So moved.
Was that your motion?
Yeah, I think that was, yeah, that was
No, that will not
right.
cover it. There is a motion by the vice chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. We'll give it to Ms. Caldwell. Okay. All those in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we'll move into closed session. The only thing that we will have after that will be board comments. Let me
You want to
ask
do
a
board
question.
comments now?
Do you want to do comments now?
I don't see
So
why we
that the
couldn't.
people who are here can go? Okay. Are there any comments, starting with Mr. Benway?
No, sir.
Philip?
No, other than, you know, I appreciate everybody's hard work, especially the teachers, and thank you, everybody, for what you do.
Okay. And Ms. Caldwell?
The only thing I have is, next Monday, I will not be here, but I will be here online. So just wanted to let the public know that, if they don't see my face physically here. I physically will be in Maine, but mentally, I'll be here.
You'll be bringing back the lobster? Okay. Ms. Bruna?
Yes, I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody in our central office. What a terrific job you guys are doing. And this was a great meeting.
Okay, let me take a couple of announcements. Oh, I didn't go, okay. Our new vice chair, Shannon Davis.
I did want to just humbly thank y'all for the nomination and that y'all saw fit to do that for me, or for the schools, really. I hope that I do a good job, and actually I hope that Dr. Levy or Mr. Levy is always here. And I'm excited for this new school year, for the leadership. This past week was wonderful. I was only there for, maybe the first 2 hours of the first day of the retreat, but it was exciting, and we do have good things coming, and it's going to be a great year.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate it. We certainly welcome you to the new vice chair. Couple of housekeeping things. We have upcoming committee meetings. August 15th, 1 p.m. Safety and Discipline Committee will meet. August 22, 10 a.m. Policy Committee will meet. August 23rd at 2 p.m. The Construction Committee will meet. I'm appointing a new chair. That'll be Stacy Caldwell. Because with her real estate background and the like, I think she's going to do a very, very good job for us there. I will also be on the committee myself.
Okay, good.
I'm because I think that one of the most important things we're going to do is look to the future and our construction, and hopefully we'll look at building a new high school, if that's at all possible. We have we have 2 overcrowded high schools right now, and would cost a lot of money, but that's one of the things that we have to look very, very hard at doing, as well as the other things I pointed out, which is to get the kids out of these classrooms, which are in trailers and the like. August 31, 2 p.m., School Reassignment Committee meeting. September 21st, 8:30 a.m., CTE meeting at Sandhills Community College. A note, a uniform committee did meet last month and developed what is a survey. So we are not implementing any uniform policy this year, or at least certainly at this point. Okay, what I believe the committee has looked at is creating a survey, which will be presented to us, I believe, at our September meeting. And so that we'll have a better look at that. Inviting everybody to our bell ringing, which is, what time? Is it 3 o'clock this afternoon?
That's the current plan.
The current plan is 3 o'clock.
We're watching the weather and hope all the board can attend. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Locklear, did you have something you wanted to say? I want to make sure I gave you a chance.
Just want to reiterate my appreciation for the board attendance at our summer leadership retreat last week. Your positive enthusiasm and energy, I think, made a great impact, and I enjoyed having you be part of those activities of our opening session. And we are very much looking forward to a great school year. We've got a great focus We're proud of the work we've done, but we now are fired up to take it deeper and to move towards continuous improvement. So we appreciate the board's focus and support of that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further to come before the board? If not, I believe did we approve the motion or did we not?
You approve the motion.
We approved the motion to go into closed session, so let the public know there will be no further business other than our closed session and adjournment. Thank you, everyone, for attending and listening. So we're.